In the dim corridors of history, certain names echo with a peculiar resonance. Knights, orders, and warriors who once strode across continents with unwavering purpose, only to vanish from the annals of recorded memory. These were not merely soldiers of fortune or pious men of the cross. They were keepers of secrets, custodians of treasures, and guardians of knowledge so powerful, so forbidden, that the very act of preserving it required layers of secrecy. Imagine for a moment a time when Europe was a patchwork of warring kingdoms, crusading armies, and mysterious societies whose codes and symbols were understood only by the initiated. It was within this world that the greatest of knightly orders flourished, orders whose influence stretched far beyond the battlefield and into the realms of wealth, politics, and esoteric knowledge. And yet, despite their immense power, they disappeared. Entire chapters of their existence, including the locations of their riches, their hidden archives, and even the ultimate purpose of some of their most sacred missions, were lost to history. What remains today are tantalizing fragments, cryptic manuscripts, faded maps, whispers of hidden treasures, and the shadows of their vanished influence. The allure of these vanished orders is magnetic, precisely because their absence is so profound. We know them from historical records, trial documents, and occasional mentions in royal decrees. Yet these official accounts tell only part of the story. They speak of military campaigns, of political intrigue, and of the immense wealth the knights accumulated over centuries. They do not, however, tell us where the vast treasures went, what relics were hidden, or how these men, trained, disciplined, and cunning, managed to conceal entire fortunes from kings, popes, and rival factions. And here lies the heart of the mystery. These treasures were not merely monetary. They included sacred relics, encrypted knowledge, and artifacts of immense spiritual and historical significance. To lose sight of them is to lose a part of history itself, a thread connecting the medieval past to the mysteries that continue to capture our imagination today. One cannot speak of vanished orders without invoking the dramatic sweep of their disappearances. Consider the Templars, perhaps the most famous of all knightly orders, who, at the height of their power, were accused of heresy and swiftly dismantled in the early 14th century. The abruptness of their fall, coupled with the disappearance of their wealth, has sparked centuries of speculation. Historians offer explanations rooted in politics, greed, and fear of power. Mystery enthusiasts see patterns, clues, and deliberate concealment. Was it possible that the Templars foresaw their demise? Did they anticipate the need to safeguard certain treasures and knowledge, burying them so deeply that only the initiated could ever uncover them? These questions have no easy answers, yet they form the pulse of a narrative that is as compelling as it is elusive. The vanished orders did not exist in isolation. Across Europe and the Levant, numerous other knightly factions, lesser known yet equally secretive, operated under similar codes of discretion. Their lives were defined by ritual, hierarchy, and an almost obsessive attention to secrecy. Members took oaths that bound them to absolute loyalty, not only to their order, but also to the preservation of hidden knowledge. In some cases, these oaths extended beyond life itself, instructing members to conceal treasures, documents, or artifacts in ways that would confound pursuers and protect the sanctity of their mission. When combined with the strategic brilliance of these knights, these measures meant that the trail of wealth and knowledge they left behind was obscured in ways that modern historians are still attempting to decode. What makes these lost treasures especially compelling is not merely the material value, but the narrative of possibility they carry. Across centuries, tales have emerged of underground vaults, buried caches in remote landscapes, and secret chambers hidden within monasteries and castles. Each story, whether myth or reality, points toward the meticulous planning of men who understood that power was fleeting and that true security lay in secrecy. Some historians dismiss these accounts as legend, while others, examining the evidence of maps, diaries, and architectural anomalies, argue that there may be a foundation of truth waiting to be uncovered. What is undeniable is the psychological and cultural resonance of these hidden treasures. They are symbols of a lost world where courage, cunning, and faith converge to create mysteries that transcend generations. The allure is further magnified when one considers the selective nature of history itself. Many documents from the medieval period were destroyed, suppressed, or rewritten, often by those with vested interests in obscuring the truth. Orders like the Templars were systematically erased from official narratives, their wealth appropriated, and their knowledge buried alongside them. This suppression has paradoxically elevated their mystique, leaving modern seekers with a tantalizing puzzle. If the official record is incomplete or deliberately misleading, could hidden truths still survive, concealed beneath layers of myth and time? And if so, what might these secrets reveal about the orders themselves, about the treasures they safeguarded, and about the medieval world that produced them? To begin a journey into the hidden treasures of vanished knights is to step into a story that unfolds simultaneously in the past and the present. It is a story of ambition, devotion, and mystery. It is also a story of shadows, shadows of vaults unclaimed, relics unseen, and knowledge preserved in silence. Each fragment, each whisper of a buried artifact, offers a window into a world where men moved in secrecy, where maps were coded, and where the boundaries between legend and reality were deliberately blurred. And as we explore the pathways they left behind, we begin to understand that the disappearance of these orders was not merely a historical event, but an enduring enigma, one that invites us to ask questions that remain as urgent today as they were 7 centuries ago. What was lost? What was hidden? And what still awaits discovery in the dark corners of history? In the fog of early medieval Europe, a time defined by fragmented kingdoms, ceaseless conflict, and spiritual fervor, the figure of the knight emerged not merely as a warrior, but as a symbol of a higher calling. A man who combined martial skill with religious devotion, discipline, and an almost ritualized code of conduct. Knights were not born of privilege alone. They were forged through rigorous training, steeped in the traditions of loyalty, honor, and service to both God and sovereign. Among these men arose the great knightly orders, organizations that would come to dominate the political, military, and even financial landscapes of Europe and the Near East. Orders such as the Knights Templar, the Hospitallers, and the Teutonic Knights were more than armies in shining armor. They were institutions, each with its own hierarchy, laws, and secret traditions, bound together by oaths that demanded absolute loyalty and secrecy. The Knights Templar, perhaps the most infamous of all, were founded in the early 12th century in the aftermath of the First Crusade. Their original mission was ostensibly simple: to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, offering safety along perilous routes fraught with bandits and hostile forces. But the order's ambitions quickly grew. Their disciplined approach to warfare, combined with strategic acumen, allowed them to amass power, territory, and wealth at a speed unmatched by any contemporary organization. Castles and fortresses sprang up across Europe and the Levant, each a bastion not only of military might, but also of administrative control and economic influence. The Templars became bankers of their time, managing deposits, loans, and transfers for kings, nobles, and even popes, creating a network that extended far beyond the battlefield. Their influence was so pervasive that it sparked envy, suspicion, and ultimately, the forces that would orchestrate their downfall centuries later. The Hospitallers, another prominent order, initially emerged with a focus on hospitality and healing, caring for pilgrims in Jerusalem and other holy sites. Yet, like the Templars, they evolved into a formidable military and financial power. Their dual identity, as healers and warriors, made them uniquely influential as they commanded both loyalty and reverence. They were strategic planners, adept at fortification, supply chains, and naval warfare, often defending key positions against formidable adversaries. These knights understood that survival depended not only on combat skill, but on networks of intelligence, the protection of sacred relics, and the accumulation of resources, wealth, land, and strategic knowledge that could be leveraged in both war and diplomacy. Meanwhile, the Teutonic Knights carved their dominion in the Baltic regions, combining crusading zeal with state-building. Their campaigns were both military conquests and acts of colonization, reshaping entire regions through castles, settlements, and religious institutions. Each order had its own secretive structures, rituals, and codes that outsiders rarely glimpsed. Membership was exclusive, ceremonies were highly guarded, and knowledge of the order's wealth and treasures was confined to the inner circles. These knights were not only warriors. They were keepers of secrets, archivists of knowledge, and custodians of treasures that spanned continents. The rise of these orders cannot be understood merely through chronicles of battles won or territories seized. Behind the visible accomplishments lay a hidden world of logistics, coded communication, and meticulous record-keeping. Maps, ledgers, and symbolic diagrams, often encrypted, were common tools. Knights were trained to interpret and create these documents, embedding layers of meaning that only the initiated could decode. This system allowed them to safeguard treasures, both tangible and intangible, in ways that defied conventional understanding. A chest of gold, a sacred relic, or a scroll containing forbidden knowledge could be hidden, transported, and protected with precision, all while remaining invisible to those outside the order. This was their genius, combining martial prowess with strategic secrecy, creating a network that could endure for generations, yet remain impervious to outside scrutiny. It is also essential to recognize the broader cultural and spiritual context in which these knights operated. Medieval Europe was a world where faith and power were intertwined. The church wielded enormous authority, dictating morality, law, and even political alliances. Knights were bound not only to secular leaders, but to the spiritual ideals of their order. Oaths were sacred contracts, enforced not just by earthly penalties, but by the fear of divine retribution. This unique combination of faith, discipline, and secrecy created a class of men who were as much philosophers and scholars as they were soldiers. Their decisions, where to fight, what treasures to protect, and which knowledge to preserve, were guided by a worldview in which material and spiritual realms were deeply connected. Yet, despite their piety and discipline, the rise of the knights was never without controversy. Rivalries between orders, competition for influence, and the tension between wealth and spiritual mission created internal fractures that outsiders could exploit. Stories of intrigue, betrayal, and sudden disappearances punctuate their histories, hinting at a complex interplay of ambition and secrecy. Some knights were rumored to have hidden treasures, not merely for protection, but for the continuation of knowledge, waiting for a future generation to uncover it when the time was right. Others allegedly buried artifacts in secret locations to prevent them from falling into the hands of monarchs or popes whose intentions were not pure. These tales, half recorded in history and half whispered in legend, laid the foundation for centuries of speculation about what remains hidden today. The rise of the Knights was not limited to Europe. Their influence extended into the Holy Land, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. Pilgrimage routes, fortified castles, and fortified ports served as nodes in a vast network of power, wealth, and secrecy. They amassed treasures from looted cities, donated estates, and the offerings of devout followers, each item cataloged and protected with care. Some treasures were purely symbolic, relics, sacred texts, and ceremonial objects, while others were tangible wealth that could finance wars, diplomacy, or covert operations. In every case, the emphasis was on security and secrecy. Knowledge was power, and secrecy was survival. By the time these orders reached their peak, they were far more than military forces. They were multinational corporations, intelligence networks, and secret societies rolled into one. Their rise created both admiration and fear, reverence and envy. And as history would soon reveal, it was precisely this concentration of power and knowledge that led to their dramatic suppression, disappearance, and the enduring mystery of the treasures and secrets they left behind. Understanding their rise is therefore essential. It is the prelude to the story of vanished wealth, hidden knowledge, and the enduring puzzle of the knights who disappeared, but whose legacy continues to fascinate, intrigue, and inspire centuries later.
Beneath the surface of medieval life, amidst the castles, cathedrals, and battlefields, there existed a hidden world, a realm of knowledge deliberately concealed from outsiders, known only to the initiated. The knightly orders were not merely military organizations, they were custodians of a profound and sometimes forbidden wisdom, a synthesis of spiritual insight, practical strategy, and esoteric lore. This knowledge was carefully guarded, transmitted through secret rituals, coded manuscripts, and cryptic symbols that could baffle even the most educated scholar. It was a world where maps were not simply guides for travel but repositories of hidden meaning, where diagrams could conceal treasure locations, sacred relics, and the movements of powerful individuals, all encoded in a language designed to evade the uninitiated. The idea of secret maps is central to understanding how the knights protected their treasures. In an age long before modern cartography, maps were both art and strategy. A map could show the lay of the land, the safest routes for pilgrims, or the positions of rival armies. Yet for the knightly orders, maps were layered with hidden codes. Mountains, rivers, and castles could signify not only geographical reality but symbolic truths, markers for hidden vaults, underground tunnels, or forgotten shrines. Colors, shapes, and subtle anomalies in the drawings might indicate where gold was buried, where sacred relics were stored, or where knowledge too dangerous to reveal was safeguarded. The interpretation of such maps required specialized training and the ability to see beyond the literal into the realm of encoded intention. Manuscripts were another key element of forbidden knowledge. The knights maintained archives filled with documents that chronicled more than battles and donations. They contained instructions, coded warnings, and esoteric teachings. Some of these texts were theological, exploring the nature of the divine and the spiritual responsibilities of the knight. Others were practical, detailing methods for concealment, protection, and transportation of treasures across vast distances. Within their pages could be found formulas, geometric patterns, and symbolic allegories that only the order's most trusted members could decipher. These texts functioned as both instruction manuals and seals of secrecy, ensuring that the knowledge, and by extension, the treasures it protected, remained inaccessible to outsiders. The secrecy was deliberate and meticulous. Knights often employed techniques that resemble what we might now call cryptography. Letters were substituted, numbers assigned, and symbols drawn in ways that concealed the true message from prying eyes. Some codes were simple, relying on substitution ciphers, while others were complex, requiring knowledge of mathematics, theology, and geometry to unravel. It was this careful layering of knowledge and deception that allowed the knights to move treasures without attracting unwanted attention. Gold, silver, sacred relics, or documents containing dangerous knowledge could be transported, hidden, or even forgotten temporarily, all under the watchful eyes of those sworn to secrecy. The purpose of this secrecy was not purely financial or strategic, it was also spiritual. Many of the treasures were sacred, believed to hold power beyond the material, relics of saints, fragments of the true cross, or objects imbued with symbolic significance. To protect them was to protect the spiritual integrity of the order, and perhaps the balance of a world in which divine and temporal power were intertwined. The knowledge of how to protect these objects was itself a treasure, a responsibility that demanded discipline, secrecy, and unshakable loyalty. Those who failed or betrayed this trust faced severe consequences, both earthly and spiritual. Evidence of such secret knowledge occasionally surfaces in surprising ways. Cryptic symbols carved into cathedral walls, unusual alignments in castle architecture, and marginalia in manuscripts hint at a hidden layer of information, waiting for someone capable of interpretation. Some maps, for example, appear at first glance to be ordinary, showing common roads or river systems, yet closer inspection reveals patterns, shapes, or distances that correspond to hidden chambers, long-forgotten crypts, or secret passages. The challenge lies in distinguishing coincidence from intention, history from legend, and symbolism from practical instruction. Scholars, historians, and treasure hunters alike have long debated the authenticity and meaning of these artifacts, often reaching conflicting conclusions that only deepen the mystery. What adds to the intrigue is the international scope of these secrets. Knights traveled widely, and their orders were often multinational in character. This meant that hidden knowledge could be encoded in multiple locations, using local languages, symbols, and cultural references, further complicating efforts to decipher it. A map in France might correspond to a hidden cache in Portugal. A coded manuscript in Jerusalem could contain instructions for treasure buried in Scotland. The interplay of geography, culture, and secrecy created a labyrinthine network of information, one designed to survive centuries while remaining inaccessible to all but the most dedicated and knowledgeable seekers. The idea of forbidden knowledge is inseparable from the notion of forbidden power. By controlling information, the knights controlled outcomes, from the success of military campaigns to the security of their treasures. Knowledge allowed them to anticipate threats, deceive enemies, and safeguard that which others could not even conceive. In this sense, treasure was not merely wealth, it was a symbol of wisdom, influence, and the capacity to act beyond ordinary constraints. Losing such knowledge or allowing it to fall into the wrong hands could spell disaster, not just for the knights but for entire regions under their protection or influence. Moreover, these secret maps and manuscripts often contained elements of prophecy or coded warnings. Knights believed that their actions had long-term consequences.
And some writings were intended to guide future generations. These were not merely practical instructions. They were part of a continuum of knowledge that bridged the past with the future. Hidden within allegories, numerical sequences, or symbolic motifs were instructions that could only be interpreted by those who understood the full context of the Order's mission. This added a layer of suspense and responsibility, ensuring that the treasures, once hidden, remained protected until the right time and the right hands came to claim them. The legacy of these hidden maps and forbidden knowledge persists today. Modern historians, cryptographers, and treasure hunters continue to explore remnants of manuscripts, castle ruins, and cryptic carvings, seeking clues that might lead to long-lost treasures. Each discovery, each fragment, is a tantalizing thread in a complex tapestry that spans centuries, continents, and cultures. And yet, for every secret uncovered, many more remain concealed, waiting for the patient, the perceptive, and the daring to uncover them. The very idea that knowledge could be deliberately hidden, protected by oaths and secrecy, transforms the act of discovery into something more profound than a hunt for gold. It becomes a journey into the minds, ambitions, and mysteries of the vanished orders themselves. In exploring the forbidden knowledge and secret maps of the knights, we glimpse a world where intellect, faith, and secrecy were intertwined, where treasures were protected not only by walls and swords, but by wisdom and coded instruction. It is a world where every artifact, every symbol, and every map might be a doorway into a forgotten past, a puzzle whose solution could rewrite our understanding of history, power, and the treasures that remain buried, waiting for those who dare to follow the path of secrecy left behind by the knights of old.
The question of who created the secret altar is one that has intrigued scholars, mystics, and explorers for centuries. Its origins are deliberately obscured, hidden behind layers of myth, destruction, and deliberate erasure. Unlike ordinary monuments or temples, this altar carries the unmistakable mark of secrecy. It was not meant to glorify kings or serve the masses. Instead, it was crafted by hands devoted to hidden knowledge, hands that understood the delicate balance between revelation and concealment, creation and danger. To uncover its builders is to step into a shadowed world where ambition, fear, and devotion intersected in ways that challenge everything we think we know about history. Some researchers suggest that the altar was the work of ancient cults, small groups whose beliefs diverged sharply from mainstream religion. These were not mere heretics in the conventional sense, but custodians of a different understanding of the cosmos, practitioners of rituals designed to manipulate forces ordinary men were forbidden to touch. In many cultures, These groups were clandestine by necessity. Their knowledge was considered dangerous, their practices taboo, and their very existence a threat to societal order. The altar itself may have been constructed as a controlled environment for their rites, a space designed to channel energies, record wisdom, and serve as a spiritual laboratory hidden from prying eyes. Others argue that the creators were rogue priesthoods, dissidents who broke away from established religious hierarchies to explore the forbidden. Within the sacred texts of various civilizations, there are veiled references to guardians of hidden truth, individuals who were charged with preserving knowledge deemed too potent for the common world. These guardians often moved in secrecy, passing their wisdom from one generation to the next, sometimes leaving coded symbols and artifacts to mark their legacy. The altar may have been their ultimate project, a site where architecture, ritual, and cosmic alignment converged into a single instrument of power, meticulously designed to endure through centuries, even as the creators themselves vanished from the historical record. Historical anomalies lend credence to the idea of vanished builders. Archaeologists occasionally uncover sites where construction techniques appear far ahead of their time or inexplicably inconsistent with known cultural practices. Some stones are transported from distant quarries, others are carved with precision that seems impossible without advanced tools or knowledge lost to time. These discrepancies suggest that the altar's builders were not ordinary craftsmen but specialists operating within a network of esoteric knowledge, capable of bending natural resources and human skill toward purposes that were both practical and profoundly symbolic. The very act of constructing the altar may have been a ritual in itself, a testament to discipline, secrecy, and mastery over the natural and mystical worlds. Folklore and oral histories provide additional clues. Across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, legends speak of shadowy figures, sometimes described as monks, sometimes as sages, sometimes as beings who were more than human, who built sacred spaces in hidden locations. They were said to possess knowledge of the stars, the seasons, and the unseen forces that govern life. They were revered, feared, and often hunted. The stories are fragmented and inconsistent, but the patterns are striking. Small groups, often traveling under cover of night or through remote regions, constructing altars, shrines, and ritual chambers designed to channel and preserve their understanding of the cosmos. Could the secret altar we are following be part of this lineage, a remnant of a broader network of esoteric knowledge deliberately concealed from the world? Political upheaval and religious persecution also played a role in obscuring the creators. In many cases, those who sought forbidden knowledge were targeted by authorities, accused of heresy or witchcraft, and often forced into hiding. Their works were destroyed, rewritten, or co-opted into the dominant narrative, leaving only fragments behind. The altar may have been built during one of these periods of tension, serving as a refuge, a laboratory, and a vault for knowledge too dangerous to exist openly. Its builders may have deliberately coded their work, leaving symbols and carvings that only a carefully trained successor could understand, ensuring that the knowledge would survive even if the original practitioners disappeared. Speculation even extends to the possibility that the builders were influenced by, or in direct contact with, cultures now lost to history. Some suggest connections to vanished civilizations that possessed knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and ritual practices that seem almost otherworldly by modern standards. The altar, in this theory, is more than a single creation. It is a node in a larger network, a tangible remnant of ancient wisdom that has been deliberately hidden or forgotten. Every mark, every stone, and every alignment may contain encoded lessons passed down through centuries, awaiting discovery by those capable of interpreting them. What is certain is that the altar's creators were deliberate, highly knowledgeable, and acutely aware of the dangers their work entailed. They did not seek fame, wealth, or recognition. They worked in secrecy, building a space designed to survive the centuries while remaining hidden from casual observers. Their disappearance from the historical record only adds to the mystery. No inscriptions claim ownership, no chronicles detail the ceremony of construction, and no contemporary accounts confirm their presence. They left behind only the altar itself, a silent testament to human ambition, knowledge, and the ever-present desire to touch the forbidden. understanding the vanished builders is more than a matter of historical curiosity. It is central to comprehending the altar itself. Every ritual performed, every artifact used, and every symbol carved is a reflection of their knowledge and worldview. By piecing together the fragments of history, folklore, and material evidence, we can begin to reconstruct not only who these individuals were but also why they were willing to risk so much for knowledge that the wider world was deemed unworthy of knowing. Their story, though largely lost, casts a long shadow, suggesting a continuity of secret knowledge that has endured against the forces of time, suppression, and skepticism. The vanished builders, then, are as much a part of the altar as the stone and carvings themselves. They are the silent architects of mystery, the custodians of forbidden knowledge, and the progenitors of rituals that continue to ripple through history. Their disappearance only deepens the intrigue, compelling those who encounter the altar to question what has been hidden, why it was hidden, and what it might reveal to those willing to seek beyond the boundaries of accepted history. The altar, in essence, is their legacy, a bridge between the known and the unknown, the visible and the hidden, the mortal and the forbidden. The search for the secret altar is as much a journey through space as it is through time. Despite centuries of whispered legends and cryptic accounts, its precise location remains elusive, hidden in a labyrinth of geography, secrecy, and deliberate obfuscation. Unlike temples meant to impress or fortresses designed to intimidate, this altar was never intended to be found by casual observers. Its creators understood the importance of concealment, positioning it in places that only those with knowledge, intuition, or guidance could ever hope to reach. The altar's very design suggests a dual purpose, a site of ritual power and a puzzle, challenging seekers to prove their worth through observation, deduction, and perseverance. Across the annals of history, there are hints, fragments of maps, encoded texts, and oral traditions that suggest the altar's location was never entirely lost to memory. Some references place it deep within dense forests, where sunlight barely touches the forest floor and moss covers every rock and fallen branch. Others hint at remote mountains, their jagged peaks concealing hidden caves where ritual chambers could be carved into stone and shielded from discovery. In deserts, folklore speaks of stone structures half buried beneath shifting sands, accessible only to those who understand the celestial patterns marking their entrances. Each account is tantalizing yet frustratingly vague, leaving the seeker suspended between curiosity and uncertainty. Some researchers claim that secret maps, often deliberately encoded, were created by the altar's custodians. These maps are rarely literal, instead employing allegory, symbolism, and hidden instructions that require interpretation. A mountain may be represented not by contour lines but by an animal symbol, a river by a series of spirals, and a forest by a labyrinthine pattern. In this way, the altar's location could be hidden in plain sight, visible to the untrained yet entirely inaccessible without understanding the underlying code. Over centuries, such maps would have been passed from one initiate to another, often disguised as mundane documents, to ensure that only the worthy could ever hope to locate the site. The geography itself seems designed to guard the altar. Remote, treacherous terrain, unpredictable weather, and natural obstacles create a barrier that few would attempt to cross. Stories abound of travelers who sought hidden chambers, only to disappear without a trace, never to be seen again. While some attribute these disappearances to superstition or accident, others suggest deliberate intervention, guides, guardians, or members of secret societies ensuring that the altar's location remained protected. The combination of natural and human defense mechanisms makes the search perilous, reinforcing the notion that this was never meant to be discovered by the curious or the uninitiated. Celestial alignment appears to play a significant role in the altar's concealment. Historical and esoteric sources hint that the entrance may only be visible during certain astronomical events, solstices, equinoxes, or specific planetary alignments. During these brief windows, shadows fall in ways that reveal hidden pathways or markings, guiding those with the knowledge to the altar itself. To the unprepared, the site remains invisible, camouflaged by nature and time. This meticulous integration of landscape and cosmic timing underscores the altar's creators' sophistication and their understanding of the universe's hidden rhythms. Local folklore provides additional guidance, albeit in riddles and allegory. Villagers living near purported locations tell stories of stone circles, hollow trees, or unusual rock formations, often cautioning that those who enter unprepared will face dire consequences. Travelers are warned of illusions, disorientation, and sudden changes in weather, phenomena that some interpret as supernatural, while others argue they are carefully designed traps or protective measures. Regardless of interpretation, the consistent pattern across cultures and regions suggests that these stories preserve fragments of truth, safeguarding the altar from casual discovery while leaving breadcrumbs for those who can read between the lines. In some cases, historical documents contain cryptic references to paths that vanish under moonlight or rivers that guide only the faithful. These may appear poetic or metaphorical, yet they align with known methods of concealing sacred sites in ancient traditions. Combining natural camouflage with encoded guidance, the creators ensured that only those who possessed both courage and esoteric knowledge could approach the altar. Modern explorers and historians often overlook these clues, dismissing them as folklore, yet the consistency of such motifs across continents suggests a deliberate strategy of concealment that transcends culture and geography. Adding to the mystery are accounts of maps that have survived through centuries, sometimes hidden in libraries, private collections, or secret archives. These maps rarely provide direct coordinates. Instead, they employ a complex system of symbolism, numerology, and allegorical references that require intense study to interpret. Some suggest that even possessing the map is not enough. Understanding the map's logic, its relationship to the stars, the landscape, and ritual timing is essential. In this way, the altar's location becomes a test, a convergence of geography, astronomy, and knowledge that filters out the uninitiated. Despite centuries of failed attempts, rumors persist of explorers who have glimpsed traces of the altar's surroundings, carved stones, partially buried entrances, and subtle alignments that suggest the presence of something extraordinary. These fleeting encounters, often dismissed by mainstream archaeology, hint at a reality that is deliberately hidden yet tantalizingly accessible. They reinforce the notion that the altar exists at the intersection of nature, secrecy, and human ingenuity, a place where discovery is possible, but only for those who are willing to look beyond the obvious, to interpret symbols, and to heed the warnings left by its vanished creators. The altar's concealment, then, is as much a part of its power as the rituals performed within it. Hidden in plain sight, it remains a paradox, visible yet invisible, tangible yet elusive, real yet wrapped in layers of legend and coded instruction. Its location is not merely a matter of geography but a reflection of the altar's purpose, its guardians, and its creators' understanding of the delicate balance between revelation and secrecy. To seek it is to enter a game designed by minds centuries ahead of their time, a journey where every step, every symbol, and every observation carries profound significance.
The story of a Knights Templar is often told as a tale of power, devotion, and mystery, yet its dramatic conclusion casts a shadow that has haunted history for centuries. At the height of their influence in the early 14th century, the Templars were more than a military order. They were financiers to kings, keepers of sacred relics, and masters of a network that spanned Europe and the Levant. They commanded armies, built fortresses, and operated a financial system that could rival the treasury of any monarch. Their wealth, independence, and strategic acumen made them both revered and feared. And yet, almost abruptly, this mighty order was dismantled, its leaders arrested, its treasures vanished, and its secrets buried in darkness. Understanding the fall of the Templars is essential to grasping the allure of the hidden treasures they left behind, for it was in these turbulent final years that many of their most valuable assets disappeared, possibly forever. The seeds of their destruction were sown in politics, envy, and the intricate interplay between monarchy and church. King Philip IV of France, heavily indebted to the Templars due to his costly wars, sought a solution that would relieve his financial burden and eliminate a powerful, independent institution on his soil. The order's wealth, meticulously recorded in ledgers and managed with a precision that bordered on brilliance, represented an irresistible temptation. Philip's desire was not merely financial. It was also about control. The Templars operated beyond his direct influence, their loyalty pledged to the Pope and their internal code rather than the crown. In the eyes of Philip, such independence was dangerous, a potential challenge to royal authority that needed to be neutralized with cunning and ruthless efficiency. On a cold morning in October 1307, the arrest of hundreds of Templars was executed simultaneously across France. Knights were seized without warning, their homes and fortresses searched, and their treasures confiscated. The accusations ranged from heresy and blasphemy to secretive and unorthodox rituals, many of which were fabricated or exaggerated to justify the king's actions. The arrests were coordinated with the complicity of certain church authorities, yet they relied heavily on torture to extract confessions, ensuring that the narrative of wrongdoing would appear credible. Trials were swift and often cruel, resulting in executions, imprisonment, or forced resignation. What is remarkable, however, is not only the scale of the operation, but the fact that some treasures and secrets seem to have vanished entirely, removed before they could fall into the hands of those orchestrating the crackdown. The disappearance of the Templar treasure has become a central puzzle for historians and treasure hunters alike. Gold, jewels, sacred relics, and manuscripts were reportedly stored in fortresses across Europe and the Holy Land. Some were transported by secret caravans, hidden in remote castles, or buried in undisclosed locations. Contemporary chronicles hint at ships carrying treasure that vanished en route, possibly intercepted by loyalists or diverted to safe locations. The precision of these operations suggests that the Templars anticipated the threat of persecution and had devised contingency plans to protect their most valuable assets. If so, these hidden treasures were not abandoned in haste, but carefully concealed with the foresight and strategic genius that had defined the order for generations. The trials and public confessions, many extracted under extreme duress, added another layer of intrigue. Knights accused of heresy were forced to implicate others, creating a web of misinformation and uncertainty. Some confessions hinted at secret treasures, hidden relics, and underground vaults, though the reliability of these statements is debated. What is certain is that a systematic effort to locate and seize Templar wealth yielded incomplete results. Large caches were never found, leading to speculation that the order's wealth had been hidden deliberately, perhaps in ways so elaborate that even the king's agents could not uncover them. This blend of public spectacle and secret disappearance has contributed to the enduring mystique surrounding the order's treasures. The spiritual and symbolic aspects of the Templar wealth also played a role in their concealment. Many items were not merely material but sacred, believed to carry divine significance or mystical power. Relics of saints, fragments of the true cross, ceremonial swords, and other items were considered too dangerous or too holy to fall into the wrong hands. The knights' training, oaths, and hierarchical secrecy ensured that only a select few could access these items, and during periods of crisis, such as the mass arrests of 1307, the responsibility of safeguarding them may have fallen to loyalists acting in utmost secrecy. These efforts, carried out across multiple countries, underscore the extraordinary lengths to which the order went to protect its treasures and knowledge, even as its very existence was being threatened. Some historians suggest that the disappearance of Templar treasures was not merely the result of careful planning, but also involved networks of loyal allies. Nobles sympathetic to the order, foreign contacts, and even members of other knightly organizations may have facilitated the removal and concealment of valuable assets. Secret routes, disguised shipments, and coded instructions would have allowed treasure and knowledge to move undetected. Over time, these efforts would have scattered wealth and documents across Europe, creating a labyrinth of hidden sites that remain largely unknown. The strategic brilliance of such operations demonstrates that the Templars were as adept at secrecy and evasion as they were at combat, and that their legacy cannot be understood solely through their public defeat. The suppression of the Templars did not immediately erase their influence. Legends, whispers, and fragments of knowledge persisted, fueling speculation for centuries. Accounts of hidden treasures, secret rituals, and mysterious disappearances became intertwined with tales of Grail lore, lost maps, and forbidden knowledge. Some theorists argue that the Templars deliberately planned their disappearance to protect certain secrets until a future time, leaving clues encoded in architecture, manuscripts, and oral tradition. While such claims are difficult to prove, the enduring fascination with Templar treasures suggests that even their disappearance was carefully orchestrated to leave a legacy shrouded in mystery, waiting to be uncovered by the most determined seekers. Ultimately, the fall of the Templars is a story of power, ambition, and secrecy converging in dramatic and tragic ways. It is a tale of an order that grew too wealthy, too independent, and too influential for the comfort of kings and even the church. It is a story of treasures hidden in plain sight, of knowledge encrypted in cryptic symbols, and of a vanishing legacy that continues to inspire wonder and speculation. The lessons of the Templars' downfall are clear. Wealth, power, and knowledge are inextricably linked, and when combined with secrecy, they can survive even the most devastating political and religious upheavals. As we delve further into the treasures, maps, and relics they left behind, we begin to see a pattern. A world where every disappearance, every lost hoard, and every secret document was part of a carefully orchestrated strategy to safeguard the Order's most valuable possessions against the forces that sought to destroy them. The drama of their final years, the sudden arrests, the vanished wealth, and the unanswered questions surrounding their treasures form the foundation for the enduring mystique of the Templars. Their fall was not the end of their influence, but the beginning of centuries of speculation, myth-making, and treasure hunting that continues to captivate the imagination. By examining the fall of the Templars, we gain insight into the brilliance, foresight, and secrecy that characterized the Order, traits that would ensure that even in defeat, their hidden wealth and knowledge would remain a puzzle, a challenge, and a mystery for generations to come. Thunder rolls across a darkened sky as the narrator's voice rises from the silence. Every empire keeps two calendars, one for the people and one for those who truly rule them. This section dives into one of the most hidden and fascinating aspects of prophetic power. The secret calendars said to be used by ruling families, secret orders, and elite circles to time wars, revolutions, and global transformations. On the surface, history appears random. But beneath the surface, the same intervals, symbols, and dates repeat with unnerving precision. To some, it's coincidence. To others, it's design. We open with an image of a dusty chamber deep beneath the Vatican Library. Candles flicker across manuscripts filled with lunar charts, Hebrew letters, and strange geometric patterns. These are not religious texts. They're celestial maps. Some date back to Babylon, others to Alexandria. Each one tracks time not by years, but by cycles. The hidden heartbeat of history. The narrator whispers. Those who understood these cycles could appear as prophets or kings. The earliest known secret calendar may have come from the Chaldean Magi of ancient Mesopotamia. They divided time into great years, each lasting 25,920 years, the time it takes for the Earth's axis to complete one precession. This vast cycle was broken into 12 smaller ages, mirroring the 12 zodiac signs. Each age, they believed, marked a transformation in human consciousness. When power shifted from one sign to the next, empires fell and new faiths rose. The age of Taurus saw the worship of the bull in Egypt and Sumer. The age of Aries brought warrior gods and conquest. The age of Pisces ushered in Christ and organized religion. And now, as we stand at the dawn of Aquarius, the world trembles once again, between faith and technology, chaos and awakening. The narrator's tone deepens. The elites of every era knew these transitions were inevitable, but they also knew they could guide them. We then move to the Kabbalists of medieval Spain and Provence, who studied the Sephirotic cycles, mystical emanations believed to shape eras of creation and destruction. In their teachings, every 500-year period represented a tikkun, a correction of the previous age's imbalance. Hidden schools within Jewish mysticism allegedly preserved these timelines, linking them to both historical and prophetic events, from the fall of Jerusalem to the founding of modern Israel. Their system was not just spiritual, it was geopolitical prophecy disguised as theology. The camera shifts to 15th century Florence, where Hermetic philosophers and early Masons revived these ancient ideas under a new banner, the divine architecture of time. They believed human history followed the pattern of sacred geometry, that empires rose according to the same ratios that governed the orbits of planets and the building of cathedrals. Their hidden motto, as above, so below, as within, so without. To them, prophecy was nothing more than the ability to see when a cycle was about to reset, when the pendulum of fate would swing. But what made this knowledge dangerous was how it was used. Monarchs, bankers, and secret councils began aligning their actions to these cosmic schedules. Wars, coronations, and reforms were timed to coincide with eclipses, solstices, and conjunctions of certain planets. To the masses, it looked like divine coincidence, but to those behind the curtain, it was careful orchestration. We then fast forward to modern times. Historians and conspiracy researchers alike have noticed patterns in global events that mirror these ancient cycles. Every 80 to 90 years, the world experiences a period of upheaval, the so-called fourth turning pattern described by social theorists Strauss and Howe. Their research suggests that history follows a repeating rhythm of crisis and renewal, eerily similar to the esoteric calendars once guarded by secret orders. The narrator asks, is this just sociology or a continuation of the ancient prophecy code under a new name? Some claim elite families still operate on hidden timetables. The Rothschilds, the Windsors, the Vatican, and certain Masonic lodges are rumored to use numerological calendars to time economic resets and political transitions. Certain years, 1913, 1945, 2001, 2020, seem to appear as pivot points in world history. Each marked the birth of a new order from chaos. Even stock markets and global crises appear to follow lunar and solar cycles. Modern financial astrologers still advise hedge funds on these patterns, a practice that secretly echoes the same Babylonian time science used by ancient priests. The narrator continues, when people say history repeats itself, they speak a truth few dare to understand. It repeats because it's made to. Next, we explore the symbolism of 33, a number deeply tied to Freemasonry and the geometry of the Earth. The 33rd parallel passes through many key locations: Jerusalem, Baghdad, Hiroshima, Phoenix. It is the number of initiation, enlightenment, and sacrifice. Major historical turning points, from wars to assassinations, often align with its numerological resonance. Whether by chance or choice, the same coordinates and dates appear again and again. In whispered tones, the narrator suggests, to the uninitiated, these patterns are random. To those who keep the secret calendar, they are signatures. As the film lingers on images of celestial charts and global maps, a deeper idea unfolds. Prophecy, as we know it, may have been designed not to reveal the future, but to conceal the mechanism by which the future is created. The prophets were not recipients of divine visions. They were mathematicians, astronomers, and strategists, aligning humanity with a cosmic metronome only they could read. We conclude with a slow zoom out from a ticking astronomical clock, its golden gears turning against a dark sky. The narrator speaks in a calm, almost reverent tone. Perhaps the greatest secret of prophecy is not that the future can be seen, but that time itself can be written. And those who hold the hidden calendar do not predict the ages. They decide when one ends and another begins. No ritual at the secret altar could unfold without its sacred implements, objects imbued with purpose, symbolism, and energy. These artifacts were not mere props or decorative items. They were extensions of the rituals themselves, carefully chosen and crafted to amplify intention, focus the practitioner, and interact with forces beyond ordinary perception. Each tool was meticulously maintained, its use governed by strict rules, and its significance often encoded in esoteric texts. Understanding these implements is essential, for they reveal not only the practical mechanics of the rituals, but also the philosophical and mystical framework that guided the initiates who wielded them. Among the most prominent artifacts are ceremonial knives, often referred to in texts as blades of discernment. These knives were rarely used for violence in the conventional sense. Instead, they symbolized clarity, precision, and the cutting away of ignorance or obstruction. Some are described as having been forged from rare metals, their edges meticulously sharpened, their handles inscribed with symbols corresponding to celestial alignments or elemental forces. In the rituals, the blade functioned both physically and symbolically. It delineated sacred space, directed energy, and marked transitions from one stage of the ceremony to the next. The knife, therefore, was as much a tool of focus as it was a conduit for power. Chalices, bowls, and vessels occupy a similarly significant role. These objects often contain substances considered sacred: water from hidden springs, oils infused with herbs, or rare powders and resins. Texts suggest that these substances were not arbitrary. Each ingredient was carefully selected for its energetic properties, astrological significance, and symbolic resonance. During ritual, the chalice could serve as a focal point, a vessel for transformation, or even a mirror for internal reflection. The care with which these vessels were used underscores the precision and intent behind every action at the altar. Nothing was accidental, and every element contributed to the ritual's efficacy. Stones, crystals, and minerals were equally central to the altar's practices. Some were embedded directly into the structure, others placed strategically around the space. Their selection was guided by knowledge of natural energy, vibration, and alignment. Texts hint at the belief that these stones could store or amplify energy, focus intention, or serve as anchors between the physical and spiritual realms. Different stones were associated with different forces or deities, each chosen to correspond with specific ritual goals. Over time, these materials became instruments of subtle manipulation, allowing initiates to interact with unseen currents in a controlled and deliberate manner. Incense, herbs, and smoke were employed not merely for ambience, but as active participants in ritual. Aromatic smoke was believed to purify the space, heighten awareness, and create a bridge between the material and the unseen. Different blends were used for different ceremonies, some to invoke clarity, others to summon or honor entities, and still others to induce altered states of perception. The careful blending, timing, and method of dispersal were considered crucial. Even minor deviations could disrupt the flow of energy, diminish the ritual's effectiveness, or trigger unintended consequences. The use of scent, therefore, was both practical and symbolic, reflecting an intricate understanding of multisensory influence in the performance of sacred acts. Textual descriptions also reference wands, staffs, or rods, instruments that acted as conduits for direction, amplification, and control. These implements were often carved from sacred trees, inscribed with symbols, and designed to correspond with the practitioner's hand, intention, and posture. Some rituals describe the wand as an extension of the practitioner's will, a means of focusing attention and directing energy along precise pathways. In combination with the altar's symbols, geometry, and other tools, the wand became part of a complex system in which human intention, sacred space, and ritual mechanics interacted seamlessly. Small figurines, amulets, and talismans also played a role, often representing deities, spirits, or abstract concepts such as life, death, transformation, or protection. These objects were rarely static. Their placement, orientation, and even rotation during ceremonies were dictated by intricate guidelines preserved in the forbidden texts. Some were made from rare metals, carved stones, or unusual organic materials, and were believed to carry energy that could be harnessed or activated. In certain rituals, these talismans served as focal points for visualization, acting as intermediaries between the practitioner's mind and the forces being engaged. The arrangement of implements on the altar was highly deliberate. Texts and oral traditions emphasize that placement was not merely aesthetic but functional, corresponding to symbolic, energetic, and cosmic alignments. A knife here, a chalice there, a crystal positioned at the center. All were coordinated to interact, creating a dynamic network of forces that magnified intention and facilitated the ritual's objectives. This meticulous orchestration of space and tools reflects the broader philosophy of the altar, that every element, no matter how small, contributes to the efficacy of the act, and that precision, discipline, and understanding are paramount. Even the act of handling these implements was ritualized. Initiates were trained to approach each object with respect, mindfulness, and specific gestures that activated its latent potential. Mistakes were not tolerated lightly. A misplaced object or incorrect movement could compromise the ritual or, according to some accounts, result in immediate, inexplicable consequences. The artifacts themselves, in this sense, were not passive. They were partners in the ceremony, responsive to intention, knowledge, and precision. The careful stewardship of these tools underscores the broader philosophy of the altar. Power is not inherent in the objects themselves, but is activated through disciplined, knowledgeable interaction. The survival of some of these artifacts through centuries of secrecy, suppression, and neglect is astonishing. Fragments of ceremonial knives, worn chalices, carved talismans, and etched stones have been discovered in remote locations, often buried or hidden as if waiting for rediscovery. Even incomplete, these remnants provide crucial insight into the sophistication of ritual practice at the altar. They are tangible connections to the initiates, their knowledge, and the sacred acts performed in secrecy. Proof that the altar was not a theoretical concept, but a living, functioning center of esoteric activity. In examining these sacred implements, it becomes clear that the secret altar was not merely a static monument, but a dynamic, interactive space. The artifacts and tools were extensions of both the altar and the practitioner, each element working in concert to channel intention, engage hidden forces, and produce effects that extended beyond ordinary perception. They reveal a system that combines art, craft, knowledge, and philosophy into a singular, coherent practice. Without these implements, the rituals could not function. Without the rituals, the altar loses its purpose. Together, they embody the synthesis of human ambition, esoteric knowledge, and the timeless desire to access forces beyond the mundane world. The secret altar, while monumental in its architecture and ritual design, is incomplete without its implements, artifacts of power, mystery, and meticulous craftsmanship. These objects were far more than ceremonial tools. They were considered conduits, amplifiers, and in some cases, vessels for the energies and forces invoked during rituals. Historical accounts and fragmentary manuscripts describe knives, chalices, amulets, engraved stones, and other implements, each imbued with symbolic, mystical, and sometimes practical functions. The very presence of these objects contributed to the potency of the rituals performed, linking physical action with the subtle currents of consciousness and cosmic alignment. Knives, often ceremonial and made from rare metals or stones, were not designed for violence in the conventional sense, but for precision in ritual acts. Their edges, sometimes engraved with celestial symbols or incantations, were thought to channel energy, mark sacred spaces, or release latent forces. Manuscripts indicate that even the orientation of the blade during ritual action was significant. A slight deviation could alter outcomes, reduce efficacy, or produce unintended consequences. The knives served as extensions of the practitioner's intent, translating human will into structured, observable effect within the ritual environment. Chalices and vessels are frequently mentioned in historical records, sometimes appearing in unexpected locations within the ritual chamber. These objects, often ornately carved or inlaid with precious materials, were used to hold sacred substances, water, oils, herbs, or other ritual components. More than containers, the chalices were thought to amplify, focus, or transmute energies, providing a tangible interface between material and immaterial realms. In some accounts, the positioning of a chalice under specific celestial alignments would allow sunlight or moonlight to interact with the contents in ways that initiated profound psychological or spiritual effects. Scholars today note that such interactions reflect both practical and symbolic sophistication. The implements were carefully designed to manipulate perception, highlight geometry, and coordinate with cosmic events. Amulets and talismans also played a crucial role in the rituals. Often carved from rare stones, metals, or bone, these objects were inscribed with symbols, runes, or cryptic inscriptions whose meanings were known only to initiates. Oral traditions describe the amulets as protective, guiding, or enhancing the practitioner's connection to the altar's power. They were sometimes worn, held, or placed strategically within the ritual space. The inscriptions themselves suggest a layered coding system, integrating celestial, elemental, and symbolic references that required both training and insight to interpret accurately. Improper handling could nullify their effect, or worse, provoke dangerous consequences, underscoring the precarious balance between power and discipline. In addition to these primary implements, other tools played subtle but significant roles. Rods, wands, mirrors, geometric devices, and carved stones functioned as focal points for ritual action. They guided gestures, concentrated mental intention, and aligned physical movements with the altar's geometric and celestial framework. Some artifacts appear to have dual purposes, practical and symbolic, while others were deliberately cryptic, ensuring that only those initiated into the deeper mysteries could discern their use. The cumulative effect of these tools created an environment in which every object, placement, and action contributed to the ritual's potency and precision. Historical accounts frequently describe the interplay between artifacts and perception. Initiates reported that even the arrangement of objects could affect consciousness, heighten sensory awareness, and guide mental focus. Shadows cast by carved implements, reflections from polished surfaces, and resonance of stone with rhythmic chanting were all deliberately orchestrated. This orchestration was not random. It reflected a sophisticated understanding of how human perception interacts with space, light, sound, and symbolism. Each implement was a node in a larger network, a tangible interface through which the practitioner engaged with forces otherwise invisible. The acquisition and preparation of these artifacts were subject to strict protocols. Certain metals, stones, and materials were considered sacred or charged with inherent qualities. Manuscripts describe intricate processes for cleansing, consecrating, or energizing the objects before they could be used in ritual. Failure to observe these preparations could render the implement ineffective or worse, disrupt the ritual entirely. In this sense, the artifacts were not inert. They were living components of a disciplined practice, requiring understanding, intention, and respect. The historical and mystical significance of these artifacts extends beyond their immediate ritual use. Many are said to carry the imprint of generations of initiates, echoing knowledge, intention, and subtle energy from those who wielded them. This transmission of legacy ensures continuity, preserving techniques, perception, and understanding across time. Even fragments of these objects, when discovered centuries later, retain traces of their original purpose, prompting fascination, speculation, and study. Their survival serves as both evidence of the altar's enduring influence and a reminder of the human desire to touch the sacred through crafted, deliberate action. Contemporary researchers continue to uncover traces of these artifacts, though often in fragmented or degraded form. Archaeological studies reveal geometric carvings, unusual material composition, and indications of ritual usage. Even in partial remains, there is evidence of sophisticated design principles, careful attention to alignment, weight, resonance, and symbolism. Modern analysis suggests that the implements were deliberately engineered to interact with the environment, light, and sound in ways that enhanced ritual outcomes. The objects were designed not simply as symbols, but as functional instruments capable of amplifying intention and facilitating the altar's influence over consciousness. Finally, the artifact's connection to secrecy cannot be overstated. Each object, by its design, purpose, and symbolic meaning, acted as both a key and a safeguard. The correct understanding and use of these implements ensured safe engagement with the altar's power, while misuse carried real and documented consequences. Initiates were taught to respect their implements not as tools for personal gain, but as instruments of knowledge, discipline, and connection with forces greater than themselves. The artifacts, therefore, represent the intersection of material craftsmanship, spiritual insight, and the disciplined pursuit of hidden knowledge, each one a tangible piece of the secret altar's enduring enigma. In sum, the forbidden artifacts of a secret altar are far more than historical curiosities. They embody a philosophy of integration, precision, and sacred discipline. Every knife, chalice, talisman, and geometric tool reflects a deep understanding of perception, ritual structure, and cosmic interaction. Together, they form a system that magnifies intention, focuses consciousness, and safeguards knowledge, ensuring that only those prepared and disciplined can approach the altar safely. Through these implements, the altar transcends its physical form, becoming a nexus where material craftsmanship, ritual practice, and hidden knowledge converge, a living testament to the extraordinary vision and meticulous skill of its creators. Throughout the centuries, the secret altar has lingered in the margins of history, whispered about in manuscripts, cloaked in the oral traditions of obscure communities, and occasionally glimpsed in the reports of travelers and chroniclers. Its existence was never openly acknowledged. The power contained within it was too profound, too dangerous to be left unguarded. Yet the historical record, fragmentary though it is peppered with tantalizing references, hints of strange occurrences, unexplained vanishings, and phenomena that defied conventional understanding. From medieval Europe to remote regions of the Middle East and North Africa, across isolated valleys and hidden mountain caves, the altar left traces, subtle, elusive, and chilling. Some of the earliest accounts come from local chroniclers and abbots, who noted that certain pilgrims or scholars disappeared after venturing into remote regions where legends suggested sacred sites were hidden. In one account, a 14th-century monk traveling through the Carpathian forest claimed to have observed a hidden clearing where strange markings were etched into the ground and stones aligned with the sun in unusual ways. He reported seeing figures moving in and out of the shadows, performing ceremonies accompanied by strange sounds, chanting, drums, and resonances that seemed to echo unnaturally across the valley. When he returned to his monastery, he attempted to record what he had witnessed, but the description was cryptic, fragmented, and suffused with a palpable fear that had clearly haunted him. Within weeks, the monk himself disappeared, leaving behind only his journal, its pages mysteriously smeared and partially illegible, as though touched by forces beyond comprehension. The recurring motif in these historical accounts is disappearance, not simply death, but vanishing without trace. Travelers who sought knowledge or artifacts connected to the altar often failed to return, their fates unknown, leaving behind rumors and fragments of reports. One manuscript from the 16th century mentions a group of scholars in the Iberian Peninsula who, guided by cryptic maps allegedly pointing to an ancient altar, disappeared after following a winding river into the mountains. Local villagers spoke of a silence that fell over the valley on the night of their disappearance, as if the natural world itself had recoiled. Attempts to retrace their steps later yielded nothing. No trace of the travelers, their maps, or their equipment was ever found. Such accounts underscore the peril of approaching the altar without guidance or preparation. hinting at both its physical and metaphysical dangers. Other accounts describe individuals returning from these forbidden regions, but transformed, their minds altered in ways that suggest interaction with forces far beyond the ordinary. A 17th-century explorer in North Africa recounted encountering a scholar who had returned from a hidden temple within a desert canyon. The man spoke in cryptic phrases, his eyes reflecting a kind of intensity that was both magnetic and unsettling. He described witnessing rituals conducted under moonlight, with stones and symbols aligned to the stars, and feeling a presence that seemed to reach into his very thoughts. When asked to elaborate further, he would only gesture toward the sky or mutter fragments of chants in a language that seemed familiar yet untranslatable. Within months, the scholar vanished once more, leaving local authorities baffled and prompting speculation that the altar's influence had marked him irreversibly, drawing him back into its concealed domain. Natural phenomena frequently accompany these disappearances in historical records. Sudden storms, unseasonal fog, and other anomalies were consistently reported near suspected altar sites. Chroniclers from various regions describe thick mists that rose abruptly, obscuring the landscape and disorienting travelers. Lightning or other strange atmospheric events sometimes occurred at the same time. While some historians suggest natural explanations, local weather patterns, topography, or electromagnetic effects, other accounts hint at an intentional manipulation of the environment by the initiates. Perhaps these phenomena were warnings, protective measures, or even the manifestation of energies generated by the rituals themselves. The interplay between natural and supernatural elements reinforces the altar's aura of danger and secrecy, blurring the line between reality and legend. Some manuscripts and oral traditions describe disappearances on a larger scale, involving entire groups of initiates. One remarkable account from Eastern Europe describes a gathering of practitioners who convened for a rare celestial alignment, one that had not occurred in centuries. The texts hint at a ritual of immense power, but its consequences were catastrophic. According to the account, every participant vanished, leaving behind only their ceremonial implements arranged meticulously on the altar. The site remained intact, as though frozen in time, but the absence of human presence was absolute. These events, though rare, underline the dangers of overreaching and the notion that the altar's power is selective, granting access only to those with the requisite skill, discipline, and preparation. Even in later centuries, historical records continue to hint at the altar's elusive presence. Explorers, historians, and amateur archaeologists occasionally report finding ruins or remnants that appear deliberately concealed. Hidden terraces, stone carvings aligned with celestial phenomena, and partially buried implements suggest that initiates took extraordinary measures to protect their knowledge. In some cases, these sites seem deliberately misleading, designed to confuse outsiders and prevent untrained individuals from accidentally engaging with the power of the altar. Such protective strategies may explain why, despite centuries of interest, the precise locations of these altars remain largely unknown. The psychological impact of the altar is also noted repeatedly in historical accounts. Witnesses who survived encounters often reported disorientation, vivid hallucinations,
and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Initiates who improperly conducted rituals describe feelings of vertigo, sudden anxiety, and even temporary amnesia, as the altar itself exerted a subtle control over consciousness. These descriptions hint at a deliberate orchestration of sensory and psychological effects designed to test the practitioner's readiness, maintain secrecy, and protect the knowledge from misuse. The line between physical, psychological, and spiritual danger becomes almost impossible to distinguish, reinforcing the altar's mystique. Some historians have noted that recurring symbolic patterns in these accounts suggest the presence of encoded warnings. Cryptic carvings, manuscripts, and oral instructions frequently describe boundaries, steps, or sequences that must be followed precisely. Failure to observe these instructions was often associated with catastrophic consequences, whether disappearance, illness, or irreversible alteration of consciousness. This pattern demonstrates that the dangers were not random. They were embedded into the very structure of the rituals and the environment surrounding the altar. The consistency of these historical accounts across geography and time is striking. From medieval Europe to North Africa and parts of the Middle East, similar themes emerge: disappearances, altered minds, protective environmental phenomena, and deliberate concealment. While skeptics might argue coincidence or myth, the repeated motifs suggest a shared understanding among secret societies or custodians of the altar who maintained and transmitted this knowledge across centuries. This continuity highlights the altar not as a single event or isolated occurrence, but as part of an enduring and systematic network of ritual, secrecy, and power. In modern times, researchers continue to examine these historical accounts, seeking patterns, correlations, and possible locations. While many records are fragmented or deliberately obscured, they provide crucial clues: alignment of structures with celestial bodies, descriptions of environmental phenomena, and accounts of altar perception in those who approach the altar. By cross-referencing these accounts, contemporary scholars can reconstruct likely ritual practices, approximate locations, and even aspects of the ceremonial structure. Though the ultimate location remains hidden, the historical records collectively paint a picture of a site of extraordinary significance, simultaneously physical, psychological, and metaphysical. The stories of disappearances and strange events surrounding the altar serve multiple purposes: as warnings, as lessons, and as evidence of the altar's enduring power. They demonstrate that access to knowledge and ritual power was never casual or accidental. It required discipline, preparation, and respect. Those who ignore these principles risk disappearance, alteration, or death. They also suggest that the altar's influence transcended individual practitioners, shaping communities, legends, and even collective memory across generations. Ultimately, these historical accounts challenge modern perceptions of what is possible. They invite us to consider that hidden forces, sophisticated knowledge, and disciplined ritual may have influenced human events and consciousness in ways that conventional history overlooks. The altar's legacy, preserved in these mysterious accounts, reminds us that history is often shaped not only by recorded events, but by what is hidden, protected, and remembered only in whispers.
The secret altar was never intended to exist in isolation. Every aspect of its design, from the placement of stones to the orientation of sacred implements, suggests a meticulous understanding of the cosmos. Celestial alignments were not mere decoration. They were a functional component of ritual practice, a method of synchronizing earthly actions with cosmic rhythms. Scholars and esoteric researchers have long speculated that the altar's creators possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, star cycles, and planetary movements, knowledge so precise that it allowed rituals to resonate with forces invisible to the untrained eye. Historical texts and fragmented manuscripts consistently reference solstices, equinoxes, lunar phases, and planetary conjunctions as critical markers for ritual timing. These markers were not chosen arbitrarily. Initiates were instructed to perform specific ceremonies at exact moments, often corresponding to rare celestial events, to harness maximum energy or facilitate spiritual access. For example, a ritual performed during a particular planetary alignment might be intended to amplify insight or open channels of perception, whereas another timed with the winter solstice could focus on transformation, protection, or the renewal of sacred bonds. The precise timing underscores the altar's function as a bridge between terrestrial and cosmic realities. The geometry of the altar itself appears to reinforce these alignments. Stones, carvings, and implements are placed in patterns that mirror star charts or planetary paths. Some researchers suggest that the altar may have functioned as a three-dimensional map of the heavens, a spatial representation of cosmic order where each element corresponds to a celestial body or cycle. This integration of geometry and astronomy reflects a worldview in which the microcosm of the ritual site mirrors the macrocosm of the universe, a philosophy common in esoteric traditions, yet executed with a sophistication that seems ahead of its time. Oral traditions further emphasize the altar's cosmic significance. In multiple cultures, elders and secret keepers describe the site as a point of convergence, a place where earthly and celestial forces intersect. Certain inscriptions, hidden carvings, or subtle alignments appear to respond only during specific astronomical events, suggesting that the altar itself was designed to reveal hidden features at precise times. Shadows may fall along particular carvings, openings in stone may align with rising stars, or reflections in sacred vessels may correspond with lunar phases. These carefully orchestrated interactions between architecture and astronomy indicate a profound awareness of cycles, light, and energy. Astrological correspondences extend beyond mere timing. Manuscripts hint at planetary influences over the altar's rituals, linking planets to specific implements, chants, or gestures. Venus might govern aspects of love, intuition, or harmony. Mars might be invoked for strength, protection, or transformation. Saturn for discipline, insight, or endurance. The initiates were trained not only to recognize these influences, but to interact with them deliberately, harmonizing ritual actions with celestial currents to maximize efficacy. The altar, therefore, acted as a tool for navigating and manipulating the subtle interplay between human intention and cosmic forces. Some researchers even speculate that the altar's alignments may have included knowledge of long-term astronomical cycles, precession of the equinoxes, eclipses, or nodal points of planets. If true, this suggests that the creators had a temporal awareness extending far beyond their immediate epoch, planning rituals to resonate across decades or even centuries. This level of foresight implies a continuity of knowledge and practice maintained by generations of initiates, each preserving and expanding upon the understanding of cosmic interactions encoded in the altar's design. The mystical connections of the altar were also experiential. Initiates described sensations of heightened awareness, perception of energy flows, and even communication with unseen intelligences when performing rituals aligned with celestial events. While modern interpretation might frame these experiences psychologically, initiates and their manuscripts treat them as real, tangible effects resulting from precise interaction with cosmic forces. The combination of timing, geometry, and ritual creates a multi-layered experience that integrates mind, body, and environment into a single, cohesive interaction with the universe. Moreover, the celestial framework served as a safeguard. By aligning rituals with predictable astronomical events, the altar's designers created a structured system that minimized risk. Mistimed actions or misaligned implements could nullify outcomes or provoke unintended consequences. In this sense, the stars themselves became guides, providing order to the potent forces being engaged and ensuring that the ritual's power was wielded responsibly. The very heavens acted as both clock and compass, enforcing discipline while amplifying potential. Even subtle details of the altar, its orientation, carved symbols, and stone placements, reveal an understanding of light and shadow, reflection and focus. During certain celestial events, sunlight or moonlight would illuminate specific carvings or highlight particular objects, signaling moments of activation. Shadows cast in these alignments were interpreted as sacred markers, guiding initiates in the correct sequence of ritual actions. This interplay between cosmic cycles, light, and human intention illustrates a level of sophistication rarely attributed to ancient ritual sites, suggesting that the altar was conceived as a living interface between human consciousness and the cosmos. Ultimately, the celestial alignments of the altar emphasize a recurring theme. That power is both structured and disciplined. The universe itself becomes a collaborator in the ritual, amplifying, guiding, and framing human intention. By integrating geometry, astronomy, and ritual, the creators of the altar ensured that its influence would resonate across time and space, a testament to their understanding of forces that transcend the mundane. These cosmic connections are not merely decorative or symbolic. They're integral to the altar's purpose, reinforcing the notion that every ritual, every gesture, and every alignment was part of a larger, universal design. The secret altar, in its alignment with the stars, is therefore not only a site of human action, but a bridge to the heavens. It embodies the convergence of earth, mind, and cosmos, a focal point where ancient wisdom, meticulous design, and cosmic forces intersect. To study its celestial connections is to glimpse the profound intelligence, foresight, and ambition of those who built it. A reminder that the altar's mystery is as much about understanding the universe as it is about mastering hidden knowledge. The secret altar was not only a site of ceremonial grandeur, but also a crucible for transformation, an environment designed to shift perception, expand awareness, and challenge the limits of human consciousness. The initiates recognized that true power was not solely in stone, implements, or celestial alignments, but in the mind of the practitioner. Through carefully structured rituals, they sought to dissolve the boundaries between ordinary perception and the hidden currents of reality, allowing the practitioner to access knowledge, insight, and experience far beyond the reach of conventional understanding. Rituals performed at the altar were multi-layered, combining physical action, sound, symbolism, and mental focus to induce states of heightened awareness. Chants, rhythmic gestures, and movement patterns were designed not only for symbolic significance, but to engage the nervous system and sensory perception. Sound, particularly, played a critical role. Tonal vibrations, cadenced repetition, and resonance within the stone chamber could alter brainwave patterns, heighten focus, and produce trance-like states. These effects, meticulously documented in fragmented manuscripts, suggest that the rituals were crafted with a sophisticated understanding of the mind's susceptibility to rhythm, pattern, and environmental stimuli. Visual stimuli were equally important. Carvings, inscriptions, and symbolic arrangements of objects were designed to guide the eye and, through prolonged observation, to engage the subconscious. Patterns repeated across stones, implements, and celestial alignments created a visual language, one that bypassed ordinary reasoning and spoke directly to the intuitive and perceptual centers of the mind. Initiates were trained to read this language, internalize its structure, and synchronize their consciousness with the ritual's flow. The effect was a heightened sensitivity to patterns, an ability to perceive connections invisible to the uninitiated, and a deepened awareness of forces both natural and subtle. Manuscripts indicate that altered states of perception were not accidental but central to the altar's purpose. Mental and sensory exercises were conducted before, during, and after rituals to condition practitioners for the experience. Breath control, meditation, visualization, and prolonged focus were used to prepare the mind, sharpen awareness, and align intention with cosmic forces. These techniques echo practices in other esoteric traditions, yet here they were integrated into a system that combined environmental cues, implements, and celestial timing to create a comprehensive framework for transformation. The initiates' accounts describe phenomena that modern observers might interpret as hallucinatory or psychological. But for those who experienced them, these events were real, tangible, and transformative. Some report perceiving energy flows, auric patterns, or the subtle interactions between objects and the surrounding environment. Others describe encounters with entities, visions of distant realms, or profound insights into the structure of reality itself. Whether these experiences were mystical, neurological, or a combination of both, the consistency and detail of accounts suggest a structured method for inducing profound changes in perception. Risk was intrinsic to these practices. Entering an altered state without proper preparation or guidance could be disorienting, psychologically destabilizing, or physically dangerous. Manuscripts and oral traditions contain repeated warnings. The mind, when exposed to forces beyond ordinary comprehension, must be trained, disciplined, and protected. Even experienced initiates approach these states with caution, using prescribed rituals, protective gestures, and repeated sequences to maintain control. The altar was as much a laboratory of consciousness as it was a ceremonial site, and mastery required both skill and humility. The effects of ritual-induced, altered perception extended beyond the immediate experience. Initiates often described lasting shifts in awareness, increased intuition, and the ability to perceive patterns or relationships invisible in ordinary life. Knowledge gained in these states was considered direct, experiential, and profound, often encoded in symbolism, geometry, or mnemonic devices to be applied in practical or ritual contexts. In this way, the altar functioned as both teacher and catalyst, producing practitioners capable of perceiving hidden truths and acting with precision in accordance with esoteric principles. Importantly, altar perception was not treated as a reward for the unprepared. The system was designed to filter seekers. Only those who demonstrated discipline, understanding, and ethical responsibility could safely navigate these expanded states of consciousness. The dangers were real, as described in cautionary tales of initiates who overreached or misapplied their insight. Mental fragmentation, disorientation, or a permanent disconnect from ordinary perception were all cited as consequences of misuse. The rituals, therefore, were simultaneously empowering and protective, structuring access to knowledge while preventing reckless or harmful engagement. The integration of mind, environment, and ritual demonstrates a holistic understanding of human perception. The altar's design, the implements, the celestial timing, and the sequences of ritual were all intended to guide the practitioner toward specific mental and perceptual states. Each element reinforced the others, creating a controlled yet expansive experience where ordinary boundaries dissolved and hidden layers of reality became perceivable. In this sense, the altar functioned as a bridge between mundane and extraordinary, conscious and subconscious, material and subtle. Ultimately, the rituals performed at the secret altar highlight an enduring truth about human experience: that consciousness is both a tool and a frontier. Through deliberate, disciplined, and carefully guided practice, the initiates were able to navigate altered states, access knowledge beyond ordinary perception, and engage with forces that are, for most people, invisible. The altar's power lay not only in stone or artifact, but in its capacity to shape the mind, expand awareness, and reveal hidden dimensions of reality. The study of these altered perceptions invites us to reconsider what is possible in the realms of mind and consciousness. The secret altar, with its precise combination of implements, symbols, timing, and ritual, offers a glimpse into a world where knowledge is experiential, perception is mutable, and the boundaries of human understanding are stretched to their limits. It is a testament to the extraordinary vision and capability of those who designed and safeguarded these rites, and a reminder that true power is inseparable from discipline, responsibility, and insight. The secret altar did not exist in isolation. It was part of a network, a hidden lineage of knowledge safeguarded by societies that operated in the shadows of history. These secret societies, whether mystical orders, esoteric fraternities, or clandestine brotherhoods, served as custodians, ensuring that the altar's rituals, implements, and celestial knowledge remained protected from misuse. To be initiated into these groups was to gain access to not only ceremonial power, but a living tradition of discipline, secrecy, and understanding passed down through generations with painstaking care. Historical evidence, though often fragmentary, suggests that these societies were highly structured and hierarchical. At the top were elders or masters, individuals who had demonstrated mastery over ritual practice, celestial alignment, and altered perception. They guided apprentices through rigorous training, transmitted knowledge selectively, and enforced codes of conduct designed to protect the integrity of the tradition. Lower ranks often involved practical roles, maintaining the artifacts, preparing ritual spaces, or studying manuscripts. Yet even the most junior members were bound by oaths, sworn to secrecy under the threat of severe consequences, reflecting the sacred responsibility associated with access to the altar. These societies were adept at concealment. Throughout history, their members often held public positions that allowed them to operate unnoticed: scholars, clergy, artisans, or political advisors. Their public personas provided cover, enabling them to gather and safeguard esoteric knowledge without drawing attention. Many societies also developed coded languages, symbols, and gestures to communicate internally, ensuring that secrets could be passed safely even in times of political or religious persecution. The altar itself, in this context, functioned as a center for training, experimentation, and transmission, a physical anchor for an otherwise invisible network. Initiation into these societies was an ordeal of mind, body, and spirit. Candidates underwent tests of discipline, intelligence, intuition, and moral fortitude. They were taught to interpret symbols, understand the cosmic principles underlying ritual timing, and navigate the altered states of consciousness induced by ceremonial practice. Each stage of initiation built upon the last, reinforcing mastery while emphasizing humility, responsibility, and awareness of the potential consequences of misused power. In this way, the societies ensured continuity of knowledge while maintaining the integrity of practice. The influence of the altar extended into the philosophies and teachings of these secret societies. Many manuscripts attribute esoteric doctrines, ethical codes, and mystical insights to the practices performed at the altar. Concepts such as balance, alignment with natural and cosmic cycles, and the disciplined use of knowledge are recurring themes. Rituals became not just a method for accessing power, but a framework for moral and spiritual development, instilling in members the understanding that wisdom without responsibility could be catastrophic. Throughout history, these societies have been linked to both intrigue and myth. Some were rumored to wield considerable influence over political events, scientific discoveries, or religious movements. Others were said to guard maps, manuscripts, and artifacts that could reshape understanding of the past. While much of this is speculative, consistent references in texts, oral traditions, and fragmented records suggest that these societies played a crucial role in preserving knowledge that mainstream history attempted to erase. The secret altar was a keystone in this network, a tangible site around which knowledge, ritual, and discipline converged. Interaction between societies was rare but deliberate. Certain records hint at coordinated efforts to protect knowledge, transfer artifacts, or standardize ritual practices. Conflicts occasionally arose, particularly over interpretation, access, or ethical considerations, yet the overarching goal remained preservation and responsible use. In this context, the altar was not merely a ceremonial site, but a nexus, a place where human intention, cosmic alignment, and disciplined practice intersected, forming the foundation for a lineage of guarded wisdom. The secrecy surrounding these societies, while frustrating to historians, served a practical purpose. The altar's power, the artifacts it contained, and the rituals performed there were considered dangerous if misunderstood or misapplied. By restricting access, enforcing oaths, and maintaining layers of concealment, the societies ensured that the knowledge was wielded only by those sufficiently trained, disciplined, and morally aware. In essence, secrecy was both protection and education, a filter to safeguard the altar's potency while preserving continuity. Modern researchers, historians, and esoteric scholars continue to uncover traces of these societies and their connection to the altar. Cryptic documents, coded manuscripts, and subtle symbols in architecture or art provide tantalizing evidence of continuity. While many of the societies no longer exist in their original form, their influence endures in contemporary esoteric traditions, secret networks, and the continued fascination with hidden knowledge. The altar, in this sense, is both historical and timeless, a focal point of human curiosity, ambition, and the disciplined pursuit of understanding beyond the ordinary. The secret societies also serve as a bridge between eras. They connect the ancient creators of the altar to modern practitioners, ensuring that rituals, cosmic alignments, and principles of altered perception are transmitted responsibly. Through mentorship, coded texts, and careful training, the societies preserved a living tradition that survives in fragments to this day. Without their custodianship, much of what we know or suspect about the altar its implements and its transformative potential would have been lost to time, obscured by decay, destruction, or deliberate erasure. Ultimately, the secret societies exemplify humanity's enduring desire to understand and protect knowledge that surpasses conventional understanding. Their stewardship of the altar demonstrates that power, when paired with discipline, secrecy, and ethical responsibility, can be preserved across centuries. Through their practices, we glimpse a continuum of learning, insight, and caution, a lineage of human ambition that bridges the gap between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, and the ordinary and the extraordinary. Even as centuries passed, the secret altar remained a point of fascination for historians, explorers, and esoteric scholars. While shrouded in secrecy, fragments of manuscripts, oral traditions, and subtle architectural clues kept its existence alive in collective memory. Modern investigations, combining archaeology, astronomy, and esoteric scholarship, have begun to uncover traces of its influence, hidden locations, and the meticulous design principles that governed its creation. These discoveries reveal a site that was far more sophisticated than simple legend suggests, challenging assumptions about ancient knowledge, ritual practice, and the preservation of secrecy. Explorers in remote regions have reported discovering structures aligned with celestial markers or matching descriptions found in fragmented texts. These locations, often in isolated mountains, dense forests, or hidden caves, display architectural elements reminiscent of ritual sites, stone platforms, carved symbols, and pathways oriented towards solar or lunar events. Many of these discoveries were accidental, made by surveyors, mountaineers, or adventurers following obscure maps or local folklore. Yet the consistency of design elements across sites suggests a deliberate and systematic approach, hinting at a broader network of sacred or ceremonial spaces linked to the altar. Archaeological studies have unearthed artifacts consistent with descriptions of sacred implements, ceremonial knives, chalices, carved talismans, and geometric tools. Even partial finds provide insight into the level of craftsmanship, symbolic knowledge, and ritual precision practiced by the initiates. The wear patterns, material choices, and inscriptions indicate intentionality and alignment with both earthly and cosmic principles. Each artifact serves as a tangible bridge to the past, connecting modern observers to a lineage of disciplined practice that spans centuries. Astronomical analysis has further illuminated the sophistication of the altar and its associated sites. Researchers mapping the orientation of structures, pathways, and artifacts have identified alignments with solstices, equinoxes, planetary conjunctions, and notable star positions. These alignments are not mere coincidence. They reflect knowledge of celestial cycles far beyond what might be expected for the period. By synchronizing ritual activity with astronomical events, initiates could amplify energy, facilitate altar perception, or access hidden layers of consciousness. Modern tools allow us to reconstruct these alignments, revealing the depth of understanding encoded into the altar's design. Contemporary investigations also highlight the enduring mystery surrounding the altar's locations. Many sites remain partially concealed or inaccessible, often protected by natural obstacles or intentionally hidden pathways. Oral traditions hint that the initiates constructed decoy sites, false markers, and labyrinthine approaches to prevent casual discovery. The combination of natural concealment and human ingenuity ensured that only those with guidance, knowledge, and discipline could reach the heart of the altar. Modern explorers often encounter these challenges, experiencing the same sense of awe, disorientation, and subtle influence that historical seekers would have felt. Technological advancements have added new dimensions to modern exploration. LiDAR scanning, ground-penetrating radar, and high-resolution satellite imagery have revealed subtle features invisible to the naked eye, hidden terraces, carved lines, and anomalies in vegetation that suggest underlying structures. These discoveries support the hypothesis that the altar's influence extends beyond its visible footprint, encompassing a network of supporting structures, ritual spaces, and markers designed to guide initiates. Even in cases where the central site remains undiscovered, peripheral clues allow scholars to piece together patterns, reconstruct practices, and understand the logic underlying the design. Field researchers also report psychological and experiential phenomena consistent with historical accounts. Explorers often describe heightened awareness, unusual perception, or inexplicable sensations when approaching suspected altar sites. While some of these experiences can be attributed to expectation, isolation, or environmental factors, the consistency of reports across different locations and investigators is striking. These observations suggest that the sites themselves, along with their orientation, artifacts, and environmental context, continue to exert subtle influence on perception, echoing the effects described by the initiates centuries ago. Modern scholarship increasingly integrates multiple disciplines to study the altar. Historians examine fragmented manuscripts and oral traditions. Archaeologists analyze physical remnants. Astronomers reconstruct celestial alignments, and psychologists study the effects of ritualized spaces on perception. This interdisciplinary approach provides a more holistic understanding of the altar, bridging the gap between myth, observation, and scientific analysis. It also highlights the sophistication of the ancient initiates, whose practices harmonized physical, mental, and cosmic principles with remarkable precision. Despite these advances, the altar remains largely hidden, its most profound mysteries intact. Modern discoveries illuminate fragments of its structure, function, and influence, but the full depth of its power, the complete set of rituals, and the ultimate purpose of its alignment with celestial cycles remain elusive. This enduring mystery continues to inspire exploration, debate, and speculation, reflecting humanity's persistent fascination with hidden knowledge and the extraordinary potential of disciplined, secret practices. Ultimately, contemporary investigations serve as a bridge between past and present. They confirm that the secret altar was not merely a legend, but a sophisticated, carefully designed nexus of ritual, cosmic alignment, and human ingenuity. Each discovery, from partial artifacts to structural remnants, reinforces the notion that this site was created with extraordinary purpose, preserved through generations, and protected by those willing to dedicate their lives to the mastery of knowledge that is as dangerous as it is profound. The modern search for the altar mirrors the ancient pursuit, a combination of curiosity, discipline, and respect for forces that remain just beyond full comprehension. As the narrative of the secret altar unfolds, we arrive at the point where history, myth, and esoteric knowledge converge, a moment where the full magnitude of the altar's purpose becomes imaginable. For centuries, scholars, initiates, and explorers have pieced together fragments, ancient manuscripts, cryptic carvings, celestial alignments, and the subtle power of ritual implements. Yet the ultimate secret has always remained elusive, carefully guarded by those who understood that its revelation carries consequences beyond the ordinary. The secret altar is not merely a physical site. It is a culmination of knowledge, consciousness, and cosmic interaction, a locus where human intent and universal forces intersect in ways that defy ordinary understanding. At the core of this revelation is the realization that the altar's power is not in a single artifact, ritual, or alignment, but in the integration of all its elements. The implements, carefully crafted and positioned, act as conduits for energy and intention. The geometry and celestial alignment of the altar amplify and harmonize these energies, while the rituals themselves provide the structure for directing focus, perception, and consciousness. This intricate orchestration suggests a philosophy in which knowledge is inseparable from discipline, and power is inseparable from responsibility. Every element reinforces the others, creating a system in which the practitioner becomes a participant in a vast, interconnected network of physical, mental, and cosmic forces. Historical accounts, when examined collectively, hint at the altar's ability to grant insights that transcend ordinary perception. Initiates describe visions, revelations, and understanding of forces and relationships hidden from the uninitiated. These experiences are often described in symbolic language, a reflection of the difficulty of translating profound perception into ordinary words. The ultimate secret of the altar, therefore, may not be a tangible object or a singular truth, but the experience of a consciousness expanded beyond conventional boundaries, a direct, unmediated engagement with the hidden structures of reality itself. The role of secrecy becomes clearer in this context. The altar's power is inherently transformative and potentially dangerous if misused. Initiates were bound by strict oaths not merely to protect the physical site, but to preserve the integrity of the knowledge itself. Misinterpretation, careless experimentation, or hubris could lead to physical, psychological, or spiritual consequences. The secret societies that safeguarded this knowledge understood that access alone was insufficient. The practitioner must also possess the discipline, moral fortitude, and comprehension necessary to navigate the subtle forces at play. Secrecy was thus both a safeguard and a form of stewardship, ensuring that the altar's power remained aligned with responsible use. Modern investigations reinforce this understanding. Researchers exploring hidden sites, deciphering manuscripts, and reconstructing rituals often report subtle, inexplicable experiences, shifts in perception, moments of heightened awareness, or a sense of connection to forces beyond ordinary comprehension. While skeptics might attribute these phenomena to suggestion, expectation, or psychological factors, the consistency of reports across centuries, locations, and cultures suggests a pattern. The altar's ultimate secret may not lie in a single artifact or formula, but in its capacity to engage, awaken, and expand the human mind in a controlled yet profound manner. Celestial alignment, altar perception, and ritual discipline together create what might be described as a bridge between worlds. The altar functions simultaneously as a site of power, a laboratory of consciousness, and a teacher of esoteric wisdom. It embodies the principle that human intention, when focused with precision and respect, can interact with natural and cosmic forces in ways that transcend conventional limitations. This synthesis of knowledge, practice, and environment constitutes the ultimate secret. That transformation, personal, perceptual, and perhaps even cosmic, is attainable, but only through disciplined, integrated, and responsible engagement. Reflection on this secret invites broader contemplation. The altar, with all its implements, alignments, and rituals, is not an endpoint, but a mirror, a tool for understanding the interplay between human ambition, knowledge, and the forces that shape existence. It challenges us to consider the limits of perception, the ethics of knowledge, and the profound responsibility that comes with access to hidden truths. The ultimate revelation is that power without discipline is perilous, knowledge without understanding is incomplete, and the pursuit of the hidden requires courage tempered by respect. In the final analysis, the secret altar represents the convergence of human history, esoteric wisdom, and cosmic principle. It is both a historical artifact and a living idea, preserved through generations by those who recognize that some knowledge is too powerful to be wielded casually. Its influence extends beyond its stones and implements, leaving traces in consciousness, culture, and collective memory. The mystery remains, but so too does the insight it imparts, that the pursuit of hidden knowledge is not merely about discovery, but about transformation, responsibility, and alignment with forces greater than ourselves. The ultimate secret, then, is simultaneously revealed and concealed. It is revealed in the understanding that every ritual, alignment, and artifact was designed to guide consciousness toward expanded perception and responsible mastery. It is concealed in the recognition that this knowledge is not easily accessed, and that misuse carries consequences that extend beyond the physical world. The altar's power, carefully guarded across centuries, continues to invite those willing to approach with preparation, respect, and humility, a testament to the enduring legacy of ancient wisdom and the timeless human quest for understanding the unknown. In the quiet conclusion, one is left with awe, reflection, and a sense of connection across time. The secret altar is more than history. It is an ongoing dialogue between past and present, human ambition and cosmic order, discipline and revelation. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved hastily, but experienced thoughtfully, carefully, and reverently. The journey toward understanding, like the altar itself, is as significant as the knowledge it contains. It challenges us to expand perception, embrace responsibility, and acknowledge that the greatest secrets are those that illuminate the mind, spirit, and universe simultaneously.